The price of love. It's a decided difference.
A Decided Difference, the podcast devoted to your success and happiness. You choose the change you want. A Decided Difference will help you achieve it. Now here's your host, Lou Ann Clark.
Those of you who have been following the podcast in recent weeks knew this day was coming, the day I tell you that my beloved Aunt Bee passed away last Thursday. Aunt Bee would have been 95 on April 2nd. She had a long life filled with extraordinary challenges, especially at the beginning and at the end. She was born into poverty along with more than a dozen siblings, and her early life was a hardscrabble existence. She grew into a strong and determined woman, but she never lost her softer side. She loved flowers as much as a human being can love them. She grew the real thing, and she made astonishingly lifelike flowers out of all things, white coffee filters. She had an eye for beauty and a talent for creating it, and she loved the things she loved with a deep devotion. More than anything, she loved her family, especially her two sons and their children and grandchildren. One of her passions was collecting friends, and she was quite good at it. When she was hospitalized for what turned out to be the last time, one of the nurses teased her that she needed to upgrade her room to a suite because she was hosting such a large party. There is a huge empty place in my life where she used to be. Aunt Bee was one of a kind, and no one else could ever begin to take her place. This is the price of love. Sooner or later, we feel the pain of loss, and certainly she felt it too. In her last weeks, she was in a great deal of physical pain, and she was prepared to go, but we all knew how much she hated to leave us. I don't know anything that hurts more than losing someone you truly love. Losing a loved one to death is so final, even if you believe that you will be reunited someday, and how I hope that is true. For the rest of your earthly life, you will live without that person. As a wise friend of mine says, you never get over it, you just learn to live with it. The pain may become more tolerable over time, but it never completely goes away. The kind of pain created by the loss of a great love changes you. It may cause you to grow in appreciation of the person you lost and the relationship you had. Or it may cause you to become angry and bitter at the world, at God, or at the disease or accident that took your loved one away. It may be the impetus for you to do many things that fall all along the emotional spectrum. You may be angry one moment, teary-eyed in grateful remembrance the next. This cycle can last for a long time. The price of love can seem unbearably high when loss comes. The breakup of a marriage or other romantic relationship can feel worse than a death in some ways because the person you love is still in this world, walking around and talking on the phone and eating Sunday dinner, but he or she is unavailable to you. Many people think of a marriage as an entity of its own, and when a marriage dies, that entity, which was created by the couple, also dies. Friends you had when you were a couple may drop away, even if they aren't exactly sure why they're doing it. That can amplify the pain. As I prepare for a long-distance move, I'm anticipating the grief process of leaving my friends from my hometown. Many of them have expressed their happiness for me and their support of my decision to move because they are awesome like that. But they also haven't hidden their sadness that I won't be just a few minutes away. I've had two cherished friends move away in the last few months, both to live the big dreams they had been working for. And so I understand this mixture of joy and pain. Losing a pet can obviously also be traumatic. My younger daughter, Catherine, is still grieving the loss of her dog, Charlotte, who died last December. Charlotte was a faithful and affectionate companion for Catherine from the middle of 4th grade all the way through middle school, high school, college, her first job, and her marriage. That is a lot of shared experience, nearly 2/3 of Catherine's life. Special animals have touched many of us, and we know, especially with them, that great love is likely to end in great pain. There are many kinds of love, and losing any of them causes pain. Maybe you lost a job you loved, or your great boss and mentor moved to a different company. Maybe there was an activity you loved that you're no longer able to participate in. Aunt Bee grieved when she no longer felt well enough to make her coffee filter flowers. She mentioned it multiple times during her last stay in the hospital. I'm still not over having to give up running years ago because I have arthritis in my hips. We don't stay stuck in the pain, not if we are healthy, but the sorrow is real, and the feeling of regret can linger for a long time. Wow, y'all, this podcast kind of turned into a downer, didn't it? So what is the point of all this talk about loss and grief and pain? Do you ever think it would be easier to just avoid loving anybody or anything? Because if you never love in the first place, you can't feel the pain of loss. I see people trying to live out that script all the time, but the plan is fundamentally flawed. Because living without love is painful in and of itself. We all need someone, something to love, whether it's a romantic partner, a pet, a job, or a hobby. When you decide that loving someone or something was just too painful, you are making a fundamental mistake in your thinking. It was not the loving that was painful, but the loss of something so precious. Pain can temporarily blind us to the joy and beauty that are possible when we allow ourselves to love. Of course, loving is a risk. You might lose that new person or that new pet or that new job. You might find yourself right back where you started with your heart broken again. But when you choose to lock your heart away for safekeeping, you end up locking the pain in there with you. The pain needs light and air and space and time to dissipate. You need time to heal. And if you go about it consciously, the healing process can be a beautiful thing in itself. There will be moments of clarity and understanding. There will be new connections made between the different situations you've experienced. And once the initial pain fades, joy can start to grow again. That is when you realize the price of love is not too high. The value of the love far outweighs the cost of the pain. If your loss came at the hands of some other person, you may have a hard time believing that. I know I did. I can very easily dredge up some pretty nasty memories of friends and lovers who let me down, or put me down, or kicked me when I was down. They broke my heart, but they didn't break me. And they didn't stop me from loving again and from being loved again. You can decide how you are going to handle paying the price of love. I don't have total control of how I feel about Aunt Bee's death. Right now it's so fresh I can scarcely believe she's gone, and there are moments when the pain catches me unaware. But I can choose to dwell on the many wonderful memories of time spent with her. I can focus on the lessons she taught me through her advice and through her example. I can remember her generous spirit and her love of beauty and her huge heart. And I can definitely remember the last good advice she gave me. Kick up your heels while you still can. Whatever makes you feel like kicking up your heels, I say go for it. Dare to remember the joy in the good times, and dare to create new joys. I love the epitaph Malcolm Forbes chose for his tombstone. While alive, he lived. We can all make the choice to live and to love regardless of the cost, because you can afford it. As I watched Aunt Bee live out her last days, in pain and struggling to breathe, I came to understand that losing someone you love may not be the worst thing that can happen to you. Being forced to stand by while they suffer is a terrible experience. All I wanted to do was to relieve her suffering, and I was utterly helpless to do anything about it. Now she is no longer hurting, no longer in struggle, and of course I am sad. I can't even describe how much I miss her now and how much I know I will miss her in the days to come. But now I know, without any question, that pain and peace can occupy the same space, and the price of love is always worth paying. Thanks to everyone who have sent condolences and messages of comfort during these past days. It really does help to know so many people are thinking of me. I'll be back next week with another Decided Difference episode. As they say in these parts, the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Until then, remember, the world doesn't change. You do.